Welcome. This is Newslink right here on eNCA. Let's bring you this now. Police data analyst Steyn returns to the witness stand in the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial today. He faced quite a tough cross-examination after linking a suspect to Senzo Meyiwa's then girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo. Now, another police officer is expected to take the stand later on today. But let's get a live update now from my colleague, eNCA's Manqoba Mchunu, who is at court. This, of course, ahead of the expected court sitting this morning. Manqoba, a warm good morning to you, colleague. I suppose let's start with yesterday, giving some context as to Steyn's testimony, giving significant evidence here, linking a suspect to Senzo's then girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo.
Well, certainly, Tumela, you recall that last week, Steyn had revealed some of the links between the suspects in this matter, that being accused 5, who he said had telephoned some of the suspects, accused 1 as well as accused 2 and 3, with the exception of accused number 4. We also heard links as far as Kelly Khumalo is concerned, that she was contacted by one of these suspects, that being accused number 5. But yesterday we heard the defense trying to cast doubt on some of the testimony with particular accused number 5's lawyers, Advocate Zandile Mshololo, who had really questioned the authenticity of the number and whether or not that number at the time was being used by Fiso Ntuli to make those calls to Kelly Khumalo. In fact, one of the arguments that was brought by Mshololo is the fact that this particular number was not recorded to Fiso Ntuli's number at the time. In fact, saying that he must provide addresses as well as proof that this number actually belonged to Fiso Ntuli at the time of the commission of this crime, to which Steyn had answered that he only relied on information that he had been given by the investigators in this particular case, and he only worked with what was before him. But also one of the issues and the questions that came was around whether or not they had privy to the conversation that had taken place on those 2 occasions in August as well as October, and whether there was any proof of a conspiracy to kill Senzo Meyiwa that perhaps emanated from any of those conversations. And I think the response from Steyn was that if there was a conspiracy at all, he cannot prove it because all he has is just the links and the fact that there were these phone calls that was made between Kelly Khumalo and one of the accused. And I think also another question that was posed is around whether or not there is proof that Fiso Ntuli was at the crime scene on the day of that particular incident. But perhaps let's take a listen to Advocate Mshololo and what went on in court yesterday.
From your investigation, Colonel Steyn, from the number that is alleged to have been, that is alleged to belong to Mr. Ntuli, was it placed at the crime scene on the date of the incident? Through your investigation, maybe by tower, it may be by whatever, was it placed at the crime scene on the date of the incident?
No, my lord, because I already mentioned we arrested them too late in the lapse period, so we couldn't apply for 205.
Akukho la kuvelela khona ke ukuthi leyo nambolo okuthiwa eka msola wesihlanu.
Manqoba, perhaps let's delve even deeper into, how the suspects are linked to Senzo Meyiwa's then girlfriend, Kelly Khumalo. It seems, as you've also highlighted earlier on, one of the accused being linked to have been made a call to Kelly Khumalo. It seems even the issue around one of the accused number being recorded belonging to him, at what year he had actually, recorded that number, was a bone of contention yesterday.
Well, certainly, and I think what the defense is trying to show is that perhaps this was not the suspects that had called Kelly Khumalo, and that perhaps there were some other people at the time that had been using this particular number. The fact that Steyn could not provide, proof that this number was actually recorded to Fiso Ntuli. This is something that, of course, the defense will be relying on to try and poke holes in his testimony. And I think when you speak of, that link between the suspects suspects. There was also evidence from Steyn last week that seems to suggest that there was communication between these suspects and that they had known each other prior to this crime happening. But of course, we also heard from lawyers representing accused 1 and 2, Sipura Mosipili, also putting it to Steyn that in fact accused 1 had denied and denounces that he was using this particular number in 2014. He only, started using this number in 2019 when he had bought a new device back in Rustenburg where he was staying at the time. But also we heard that accused number 2 admitted that he was using the number, but he says, however, that, he was not part of those that were called by Fiso Ntuli. And we got to hear of another character as far as this is concerned, Ntuli, who we understand is the uncle of one of the suspects, suspect number 5, who is Fiso Ntuli. And we understand that the link that was established was between Fiso Ntuli and Ntuli. He then was the one that had called accused numbers 1 and 2. So this shows that they might have not been directly called by Fiso Ntuli at that particular point. But we also got to hear testimony, Tumelo, around what happened in the house. And the question that was posed was around whether any of the cell phone towers did pick up a call that was made by any of those that were inside the house at the time this crime had happened, and whether anybody between Kelly Khumalo, her sister, Gladness Khumalo, the mother, as well as the 2 friends of Senzo Meyiwa, had called the police after Senzo Meyiwa had been shot. And I think we heard from Steyn the shocking revelation that actually nobody in the house had called police at that time. But just take a listen to that bite.
You know, from your analysis of the numbers of all the targets that were in the house, except for Zandile Khumalo, who categorically stated in this court that she did not call the police nor emergency services. The other targets in the house, that is Makhumalo, Tumelo Madlala, Longwe Twala, Mtokozisi Twala, to have anything that on their cell numbers they called the police or emergency on the night of the incident.
That's correct, my lord. I did check. I couldn't find any number of the police, even 10-111, from any of the phones in our position, which was on my analyst database.
And what's to be expected this morning in court, colleague?
Well, we're expecting Lamberto Steyn to be cross-examined by the lawyer representing accused number 5. And I think where we left off yesterday was when Advocate Zandile Mshololo was asking him about whether they could trace the phone of Fiso Ntuli back to the crime scene. But he had then indicated to court that, in fact, they had done this investigation quite late. It was not done back in 2014. And so they could not really, get those details as far as whether or not he was there on the crime scene or not. So we're expecting Mshololo to pick up from there. And of course, we also know that there possibly is likely to be another witness that will come before this court, the 5th witness in this particular matter. And this is also a police officer who was involved in the analysis of the cell phone material. He dealt mainly with the pictures that were downloaded from the devices that were confiscated by police. And so we're expecting him to also further give testimony about what was found really on those phones and the links between the suspects as well as those that were inside the house when this particular crime happened.
All right, we'll leave it there and we'll be sure to bring all those details to our viewers when court commences. Manqoba Mchunu, thank you so much for bringing this update for us outside court at the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial.